Morning, I'm Dean Mikkelsen. I'm the editor of Oil and Gas Middle East here in Abu Dhabi. We are attending ADIPEC and we've got some news and information to share with you. Right now we are talking with Petrofac to Alex Haynes, who is going to talk about their energy transition process and provide us with some more news. So Alex, in the context of the Middle East reliance on heavy oil and gas, how do you envision the energy transition occurring, and what's your role in that?
Petrofac has been quite active in energy transition projects for the last 10 years or so, mainly in wind with HVDC stations, of which we've had a recent award, which you have covered in the Netherlands. And we've been working in carbon capture for over 10 years as well. We also look at hydrogen, we also look at waste to energy, so productions of sustainable aviation fuels like SAF, and as well as emissions reduction. So how does it work in the Middle East? Well, the Middle East is our heartland. It's where we've been based for over 30 years here in the UAE. And the Middle East has been traditionally an energy supplier for the globe, for particularly the GCC, for many, many decades. And that will continue. If the customers want to buy low carbon energy, then Abu Dhabi, the UAE, will continue to provide that. And retain their position as energy producers for the globe. So that I see no conflict whatsoever between the oil and gas and existing experiences they've got here in the UAE as energy producers, and where it will go in the next 20 years as we move to a more decarbonised energy system. So in the UAE and the GCC countries, they're very experienced and have got the supply chain in order to deliver large, complex energy projects. It's exactly what the globe's going to need going forward. It's just that energy will have a different mix. So you'll have much more low carbon, much more renewables included. And you've seen that already in the national strategies here in the UAE for hydrogen, for instance, their nuclear build out as well. So this is a continuation of the journey, a continuation of the story. And Petrofac are very pleased to continue to support the region and deliver projects here.
What specific strategies that you are employing here in the Middle East towards energy transition?
So Petrofac remains technology neutral. We don't have any pet technologies that we use, but we know all the technologies, keep an eye on it, and we can advise our clients the best one that's optimal for their projects. Again, we have an ability to design, build and operate our energy assets for our customers. So for instance, today's a very exciting day for us. We've just announced a major award with ADNOC for a CCUS project, a carbon capture project in Habshan. It's worth over $600 million to us, and will capture 1.5 million tons of CO2 annually. So a big step towards the UAE's goal. That plays on our core skills in project management, construction, procurement, and safely operating those assets. So delightful. And ADNOC has been a major customer of ours for many years, so we're really pleased to do that. What's our strategy? Bring the same skills, the same understanding of delivering complex projects here in the Middle East, as we have done for traditional oil and gas work. High amortization scores, make sure we're sustainable here in the market, and make sure we can continue to deliver safely for our customers.
How do you find the integration of renewables into your workflows, your processes throughout the whole Middle East?
So if you break it down to a typical project, you have a feedstock or an input into one end of the asset or the plant. It does something very clever in the process, and you produce a product at the other end. So all we're changing with the integration of renewables is the feedstock is changing, perhaps to electrons, green electrons, as opposed to maybe brown or grey molecules. Ultimately, that feedstock is something that we have understanding of. We have quite a strong electrical capability. We've been working, as I said, in wind, offshore wind, for over a decade now, delivering offshore high voltage direct current HVDC platforms and HVAC platforms as well. That's not only the offshore asset and the jacket and the big yellow box that it sits on, but it's also the land station too. So our ability to integrate that into a viable project is equal to anyone else, right? So there's no different there. What we are seeing is some interesting different feedstocks coming in, particularly in the SAF arena. So sustainable aviation fuel, it's quite hard to electrify or use hydrogen, for instance, for aviation. You've got existing very optimal engines, you've got quite a high payload, you don't want to have huge amounts of hydrogen on there. Electricity batteries are heavy, so we're looking at drop-in fuels for the aviation industry. And the Middle East is an aviation hub, right? With Etihad and Emirates here in the UAE and others across the region. Having people ability to fly, I don't think people are going to want to stop flying. In fact, we see demand increasing. So can we produce a low carbon drop-in fuel that will work with the existing engines that will provide a way to decarbonize the aviation sector? And we're seeing interesting feedstocks from that. So if you have any waste feedstocks, you can have municipal solid waste, you can have used cooking oil. We're even working on a project in the UK looking at taking sewage sludge and turning that into aviation fuel. And again, an abundant resource, one that's not currently used, but by clever process technology, we can turn that into valuable output that can go straight to the aviation industry. So the renewables is one part, but actually widening and diversifying our energy sources into low carbonized and low carbon sources to provide consistent energy outcomes for our customers is what we need to do. And it's a very exciting time right now, frankly, in the industry.
Now, in the industry, working with other initiatives and partnerships is important. So how are working with these partnerships helping you to reduce greenhouse gas emissions with yourself and with your clients?
So partnerships goes up and down. So we sit in the middle between the supply chain and our ultimate end clients. So the ultimate end clients, we need to discuss with them and align with their net zero goals. Most of our customers have got a net zero ambition, or the market is driving them towards a net zero target. So we have to work with them and understand their needs and help them deliver the projects that will optimize and meet that goal. Likewise, we've got a net zero goal ourselves in Petrofac, and we need to work with our supply chain to make sure that we all align on those, to make sure that our scope 2 and scope 3 emissions are also able to deliver on those. So we're looking at how can we minimize our footprint in construction camps. Can we electrify? Can we use electric vehicles? Can we use solar power, particularly in the Middle East, where you've got abundant solar resources? What else can we do? I mean, the typical quick wins are stopping plastic and single-use plastics. But how can we build more thoughtfully about how we lower our carbon footprint? And we're starting to see those questions coming from our customers. So they're driving it down to us, and we'll drive it down the supply chain. Great opportunity for change, great opportunity for innovation, and one that we are wholeheartedly embracing.
Now, the final question is, what other opportunities do you see to go towards net zero for yourself here in the Middle East and elsewhere with your clients?
So as I said at the opening, we operate in 5 areas. One is emissions reduction, so flare gas reduction, optimal working. If you've got a leaking tap and your bathroom's overflowing, you don't mop the floor before you fix the leaking tap. So what we need to do is look at reducing emissions and optimizing our existing energy mix, so we're operating them efficiently and with low carbon impact. That's number one, right? Fix the tap before you mop the floor. Secondly, we see a huge growth both in CCUS with our award today, that can be used. And actually, if you can take that carbon and use it and mix it with hydrogen or process it further, you can produce very interesting e-fuels, so e-methanols or ammonias as well. So we see hydrogen as a key vector as well, particularly in the Middle East, in Oman and the UAE. The UAE's got a national hydrogen strategy. Great wind, great solar resources, great understanding of delivering projects. Hydrogen is part of the solution. The way we see that is if you can use the electrons first, you should do that. It's the most efficient way of doing it. Secondly, if you've got spare electrons, then transform that into hydrogen and use that hydrogen to start producing e-fuels or SAF if you can. Ultimately, we're seeing also a lot of ammonia projects going in Namibia, in Oman, in Egypt, for instance, where we see a way of decarbonizing shipping. And we're already starting to see the first shipping orders being made by Maersk and others with methanol ships and ammonia fueled ships. Some of them are dual fuel, so you can choose to have it with marine fuel, or you can choose to have it with a net zero fuel. And we see that as being a huge demand. Again, something the Middle East can deliver very effectively, particularly with its geographical location, right? You're right in the heart of the shipping lanes, the Suez Canal for Egypt and the Straits of Hormuz here and Oman. So we see e-fuels as key for it as well. You can't get to net zero without capturing some of the carbon. So our CCUS activities are key. It is net zero. That means you're still going to have some emissions, and you need to capture the ones you can't and the hard to abate sectors. So carbon capture is growing quite rapidly, particularly in Europe with a number of clusters in the UK and in Europe. And here, as we've discussed about ADNOC as well. So carbon capture and hydrogen as key vectors. Wind is the backbone of a lot of renewables. It's a very mature market. There's gigabytes and gigabytes coming on in terms of gigawatts, in terms of demand, but the grid has to be ready for that as well. So some places like the UK, when you get a lot of energy coming from offshore wind, the grid can't take it. So there's an opportunity to then transform that energy into molecules in hydrogen or ammonia as well. So massively exciting. Our engineering and our project managers are aligned. As Petrofac, we're human beings like everyone else. We also want to do good for the planet and deliver on those net zero goals. And we're finding that a lot of our youngest and brightest engineers are desperate to work on low energy, low carbon, low net zero projects. So there's a lot of goodwill in the market for that. Our supply chain likewise. So it's a great time to be in the energy industry. You've got continued demand from oil and gas as we continue to use that vector. We've aligned and coupled with this push into low carbon and the energy transition. So, the future is very bright indeed. We need to continue producing energy. Companies like Petrofac are the companies that design and build and operate those assets to ensure that happens. We do it safely, we'll do it economically, and we're glad to be part of the journey.
Thank you very much, Alex. It's been very informative, and enjoy ADIPEC.